Hello everybody, I'm Storm here, and welcome back to the Stellaris tutorial series. In the last several videos, we went over how to start up a game and played through about maybe the first hour's worth of the beginning of the game, going over those basic initial concepts, setting up your research, building stations, exploring, surveying, running special projects, researching anomalies, establishing a colony, all those sorts of things. Now what I wanted to do was actually kind of jump forward a bit into not exactly mid-game, but much kind of later in the early game. And in order to do that, I've gone ahead and loaded up one of the early save files from my existing Let's Play series for Stellaris. Now this version of the game is running all of the existing DLC at the time, as well as a large amount of mods. So some things are going to look quite different, but the basic ideas should still be the same. I'm going to go over a few more things that we haven't been able to go over with the early game. So at this point in the game, we have a rather sizable empire. We have a bunch of colonized systems, and we've been able to meet a bunch of other empires in the galaxy. So we have some options of things we can do. Now, first thing we want to do is go over one thing that I didn't have a chance to because, well, we just didn't have enough systems under our control to really demonstrate it. Right now, if we look up here, we can see that my directly controlled systems right now says 5 out of 4. So we are above our limit of directly controlled systems. So we are we're suffering a penalty to influence gain. We're suffering a penalty to energy generation, which could potentially be a problem if you do that. So what we need to do in this situation is we need to create a sector, which we'll notice that there are a couple of other sectors. One over here, one over here. They show up as kind of this lighter area on the map. So to create a sector, what you'll do is you go under here, planets and sectors, and there is an option here for creating a new sector. We have a limit of 6 total sectors we can create. So we'll go ahead and create a new sector, and we need to add 1 planet to it. So we need to find a colonized system, which there's one right here. So we click the little plus sign. It will create a sector. Now we're going to want to make sure this sector actually gets resources because it's going to be independently managed. So we're going to need to make sure that it has some power. So let's go ahead and add that system there and that system there. So they'll make sure that it has some power and some minerals, and then hit close. Now, if we go back to the planets and sectors, we'll see that this tourist prime sector now shows up. Now there are a few things that we can run. We hit the sector settings. We can provide what this sector can do. So they can build military stations. They can build space constructions. So they can build spaceports, orbital stations, and ships. Now we're telling them to respect tile resources. So we don't have a direct control over the planetary construction on the planets that are assigned to a sector. So we'll tell the governing, basically the governor of that sector, to say respect tile resources. So make sure that they build things on the tiles on planets that match the resources on those tiles. And we allow redevelopment so that there's anything there that the AI decides it needs to be changed, then it can go ahead and do that. We can allow it to build robots if we have robots available. We can also allow them to colonize. So if we allow them to colonize, then they can build their own colony ships and colonize other planets in their sectors. So that's where, that could be something that you want to do. Maybe not. Depends on how you want to manage your empire. Now, right now, it has set the balance focus. So they'll basically respect their tile resources and just kind of try to balance out their production. But we also have the option for agricultural focus. So the AI will focus on building food-generating buildings, or industrial focus, which will focus on generating minerals, research, which will generate science, and financial, which will generate energy credits. We'll just leave it on balanced focus for now. Now, the other things you're probably going to want to do is each of these sectors can be assigned a governor. So we click on that. We're almost at our leader capacity. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take one of my governors from here and say, you, instead of governing just a single planet, I want to promote you to govern an entire sector. So there we go. Now, and then this lets you know what that sector is currently doing, which nothing right now. Now the other things are, this is the resources that are in that sector's resource pools, because they each have their own resource stores. We can tell how much that we want them to contribute to us. So we can set they will give us 75% of their production. We can also give them energy credits and minerals to let them help them build things. And we can then say extract, we can drain their stockpile. So if they have a very large stockpile and we need some resources, we can say, well, I want to drain their stockpile. It's going to cost us some influence to do that. But, that's an option. Also, there's a button here for Manage Sector, which allows us to add or remove planets from a sector. So that is sector management. It becomes more important the larger and larger your empire gets, because you only have a certain number of systems you can directly control. So the more systems you acquire, the more sectors you're going to need, or the larger sectors you're going to need. So we have that. Now, the other thing that we weren't able to demonstrate are the frontier outposts, which right here, these systems with this little symbol indicates that it has a frontier outpost, which is this guy right here. That what it does is it helps expand your nation's borders without actually establishing a colony. So if there's an area with resources that you want, so if we turn this on, we can see resources. Like there's a lot of star systems down here with a lot of resources, and we wanted to get control of this, but we don't have any colonizable systems. These guys we can't really build colonies on. So what we can do is build frontier outposts in this area that will expand our borders and get us access to these systems so that we can then build mining stations around these planets. So that is another thing that you can do as well. Now next, we want to go over a little bit more of military stuff. We did kind of demonstrate this a little bit in the previous videos, but we didn't have a lot of options. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go into the ship designer. Now, as you can tell, that I'm running a mod that uses Star Wars ship designs, so that's kind of cool. So if we have new designs, we can build corvettes, we can build cruisers, we can build destroyers, we can build battleships. So if we design a new battleship, then we have different options for different modules or different sections of the ship that have different abilities. So you have this little P here, which is for point defense. Point defense are weapons that specifically target incoming enemy missiles and fighters. They don't actually shoot at enemy ships. You have medium and large weapon slots. You have this H here, which is a hangar module, which allows you to fit a fighter or bomber wing. So you can fit that there. You have point defense, so we have like point defense weapons. We have medium weapons. Yeah, which we can put that there. And then we have down here, we have these A, which are auxiliary modules, which as you research, you can unlock more and more of these auxiliary modules. So we say we want to give them a shield capacitor and some crystal infused plating to increase the health of the ship. Now we want to choose another section, which I guess we're going to go with we're going to build a carrier. So we're going to choose the carrier core, and then we're going to choose maybe this artillery stern to give this carrier some heavy weapons. And so for small, we're going to say let's give them some nuclear missiles, and we're going to fill out the rest of the hangars. Which we had a fighter, which we're going to give it another fighter wing, and then we're going to give it a bomber wing. And it needs more point defense, which will give it some more point defense weapons. Now, what I typically like to do is then click autocomplete ship, which will fill in all of these modules to try to get as much armor and shields as it can get. We'll establish power generators to make sure that they can cover the power requirements, and also make sure that you're running the best of these modules over here. So this would be your FTL drive, what kind of combat computers you have, what kind of sublight engines you're running, and what kind of sensor packages you have as well. Now what it did do is it did change my auxiliary modules and put the regenerative hull tissue, which allows the ship to regenerate its hull without having to fly back to a starbase for repairs. I'm going to switch that back to the shield capacitor, which allows the ship's shields to regenerate in combat, right? So that actually can be more useful. We can always send the fleet back for repair if we need it. So we need to give the ship a name, which we're going to just call it Carrier for now, and save it. And then it shows up in our list of ship designs. And then we can say, alright, I now want to go ahead and build some of these carriers. Queue up a couple of them. Now, we need to worry about naval capacity, which I think I mentioned before. And we should be fine here. So say, okay, we got a couple of carriers. Alright, so the next thing we really want to talk about is kind of fighting a war. Because once you have discovered other civilizations, we can fight them at wars. Actually, before that, let's just talk about diplomacy in general. So if we click on this, we can talk to that other nation. We can do it that way by either just by directly clicking on that little symbol right there. You can also go into your contacts and see all of the nations that you've discovered, as well as various other things. But, you know, go ahead and we'll talk to them. We have all these different things. We can offer a trade deal, which if you played like any modern civilization games, this will look very familiar. You know, we can offer them strategic resources, we can transfer systems to them, we can ask them to transfer systems to us, we can transfer food back and forth, energy credits and minerals. We can ask for their wormhole station access, which if we wanted access to be able to build wormhole stations in their territory. That becomes very important if you're running wormholes, is you can't build wormhole stations in other people's territory unless you actually negotiate with them and you know, have them let you do that. We could also trade our star charts, or we could do a research agreement, which gives everybody a 25% research cost boost for technologies that you've already discovered. So if I did that, if I had technology that they didn't have, they would get a boost to research. If they had technology that I didn't have, I would get a boost to research of that tech. So we're basically sharing our knowledge between us. They don't want to do that at all. And when you see that, when you see this negative 1,000, it means they're never going to do it because they hate us. They're hostile to us, so they're never going to accept that research agreement. Because right now we actually have them declared as a rival. So we can see the various diplomatic relationships. They have trade deals with these guys. We are rivals with them. Rivalry basically creates a big opinion penalty. They see us as a threat, but it does actually increase our influence generation. If we see from rivals, 1.15. Alright, they are associating in a federation with these other guys, which means they're not actually in a federation, but they're associated with them. They have non-aggression pacts, they have defensive pacts, so it means if we attack them, then these guys will join in. So that's something to pay attention if we want to go to war. Say, oh, wait a minute, you know, if we fight a war, we're going to be fighting all these other people as well. They have migration treaties, and they have closed borders. And then we can do things like offering migration treaties. We can demand that they vassalize. We can demand tribute from them. We can ask if we say we want to be their vassal. And we can insult them, just, you know, for giggles. We can send them an insult. Alright, so let's go ahead and pause it. Let's actually get this moving. Now, if we go into our home system, you'll see my fleet, which is a fairly large fleet. Got a bunch of ships in it. Now this is a fleet of transports carrying ground armies. That is also one thing that we hadn't gone over yet at all, and is actually something that is fairly important, especially if you're going to be waging any wars. You're going to need ground armies. So if we go to like our home system here, and we go click over the Armies tab, we see that there are some defense armies here. We see up here that we have a whole bunch of armies in orbit, in transports, which are these guys. But we can then recruit new armies. So if we recruit an assault army, they will build. Only assault armies can actually embark from the planet and, you know, go land on other planets to attack them. Defense armies purely stay on that planet to defend the planet from assaulting
system survey complete.
Enemy armies. So wait for this to finish, because there's one thing that I want to show that you want to do with your armies that a lot of people might miss initially. "10 days, and there you go. Let's pause the game. Alright, so here is our 88th Planetary Invaders. If we click on them, we can assign them as a general. We already have a general that's commanding another army. You only really need one general in the whole force when it lands, so we don't really need to worry about that. But this one right here is important, the attachment. If we click on this, then we have options to attach different equipment to this army. At the moment we have neo-concrete fortifications, will increase the army's health and decreases their upkeep. Usually that's something you want to use for defense armies. Okay, so the other attachments that we have here are hunter-killer drone swarms, which increases the army's damage, and I have the technology for Psi Warriors, which gives basically our psionic warriors. So it gives the army damage and morale damage, so we want to click on that. Put that attachment on there. They have costs, so you have to be, keep an eye on that. And then what we can do is then we can embark that, and if there is a fleet of transports already in orbit, they will just join right in. So there we go. So that is how you train up armies, give them attachments, and embark them for missions. So we want to go ahead and fight somebody, I think. Now the one issue is that these guys, as we've noticed, they're in a defensive pact with basically with this, and these guys down here. But what about these guys? Oh, looks like I have a truce. I just ended up fighting them at this point. Okay, so when does that truce drop off? 2314. So 7 years before that truce goes away. We can go ahead and declare this war just to kind of demonstrate how to fight wars. So let's go with these guys. And let's go and say we want to declare war on them. Then what we get is we get a list here of what it is that we are going to demand, and we have a lot of stuff in here. So we can just straight up humiliate them. So if you want to pick a war goal, you just drag it over and just drop it on here. So what humiliate does is it doesn't actually get us any real like territory or anything. It just, you know, humiliates them and gets us some influence. So if you need to get a lot of influence, you can humiliate your neighbors and generate some influence, some political power, essentially. It will reduce their influence gain and happiness for 10 years. We can also have them cede their planets, so they'll transfer their planets into our empire. We can have them liberate planets, which is they'll have to break off sections of their empire as an independent, as basically independent states. We can have them, well, because of the ethics that we have, we can tell them to cleanse their planets, which means that we will force them to remove their colonies from certain planets, allowing us to move in ourselves. We can force them to destroy their frontier outposts. Now, interestingly enough, if you declare war on them and you know where their frontier outposts are, we can just fly our fleets over there and blow them up. I'm not sure why you would really choose that. If you need to destroy a frontier outpost, declare a war for something else, and then just fly your fleets where their frontier outposts are and blow them up. We can tell them we want to vassalize one of them, because they'll become our vassal. Or we can make them as a tributary. So then they will, let's see, they'll pay us 25% of their energy credits and minerals in tribute to us. Now, there's another thing down here. It says war score cost, but you cannot amass anything more than 100 war score. So humiliate is 10 war score. So you say war score cost is 10. Let's say I want all your planets. I want all your planets. We say all of a sudden no war scores over 100. We can't do that. So we have to remove all that. And also, if we notice, like, say we want to vassalize, you know, this war score, just trying to vassalize them is going to be more than 100 war scores. So they're too big to vassalize at the moment. So I'm going to say, all right, what do we want to get? So maybe we want to get these two systems. Let's say this. Now, what we can do is, instead of trying to search through this whole list and find the planets that are in those systems, we can use filters. So we just type in the name of the star system, OBSK, and then we can see, okay, so these are the planets. This is the planet here. We say, okay, I want that planet, and then we want this system here, BIRANA, there we are. I say, I want that planet. We can invite attackers, which, you know, these guys will not join my war. So these are people who could potentially want to attack them, but they can't. So we'll say we are done. And then if we want to go ahead and go to war, we hit confirm. Now, this is going to let us know that our opponents are going to be, these 4 nations are going to be our opponents. So this might not be an actual good idea to do for real, but for our demonstration purposes, we're going to go ahead and confirm it. And we now have declared war. So what we're going to want to do is we now need to generate war score. So it puts this little icon down here, which we can open up, shows, you know, the attackers, the defenders, what the progress of the war is, and then we can have this negotiations tab where we can say we want to put those demands in there, and how much war score do we have? We have none, and then whether or not they would accept. So we actually need to generate 20 war score just to be able to make any demands at all. If we say, all right, we're done with the war, we don't want this, we can surrender. But now we're going to say we want that. Now what we're going to want to do is we have our military fleet here, and we are going to fly our military fleet into an enemy system. So probably closest is like right there. We'll fly straight there. This civilization has warp technology, so they can go just fly straight. Let's unpause it. Now, what you'll notice is that all of a sudden, now that our fleet is embarked, we are now negative energy credits. So that is something to be concerned about. That when your fleet is embarked from the station, they cost more to maintain. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to warp over there.
Station under attack. Evading hostile fleet.
So an enemy fleet has shown up. And they're now attacking one of my starports. And one of my military stations.
Station under attack.
And we're just going to take some damage. Alright, so now my fleet has arrived in their system. I'm just going to tell them to go aggressive.
Military station lost.
See, this is why you want to be careful about what what you're attacking.
Complete.
Oh, pick up research. Pick the physics labs.
Mining station lost.
Yep, now they're blowing up our stations.
Station engaged. Mining station lost.
But actually, I'm not worried about what's going on over here right now.
Mining station lost.
Let's see, are we getting hit by someone else? Yes. We have another enemy fleet over here. So they're all fighting. Alright, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to tell my transport fleets to fly over here. And we're going to say enter orbit.
Building ruined. Spaceport lost. Situation log updated. Construction complete. Building ruined.
So yeah, it sounds like that we are now having one of our planets sieged. Alright. Enemy troops are landing here.
Lost to invasion.
Yep, so fighting enemies on multiple fronts can become a bit of a problem. Alright. But our guys have arrived. So now, our fleet is now parked over one of their planets and bombarding it and reducing its fortifications. So when that reduces to 0, they had to have no fortifications. So you don't want to just take your troops and just land immediately on a planet without bombarding it first, because they could potentially lose. Alright, so now the fortifications are at 0. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to tell these guys to right click and say land armies. Alright, we look at this. We can click over here and we can see we wipe out their army and we've occupied their planet. what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to send... Looks like we got a new ship. I can tell them to merge. Let's make these guys a rally point. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tell my fleet to now... Let's see if we can engage this enemy fleet.
Construction complete. Research station lost.
Alright, they're going to warp in 5 days. Actually, there's an enemy fleet right here. We're going to tell them to fly here instead. So as we can see, we actually have negative 21 war score. So we are actually losing this war right now.
Enemy troops landing. Planet lost to invasion.
And we can see down here that we have occupied planets. Up here, we are occupying their planet. They've actually brought in some forces to try to retake the planet. Alright, looks like they actually jumped away. So you can take a look at this and say, okay, so there's no more enemy fleet there. So what we might want to do is actually fly back here instead. I just want to get a fleet-to-fleet engagement so you can see what that looks like. Alright, so before we do that, here's an enemy fleet, right? And what you can see, these little triangles here that have the names of the nearby systems that indicate kind of where your fleet's going to appear. So here's Eros. I'm not sure if that actually shows up. But here's Eros. So this is that we're kind of up here, and actually we can see this is my fleet incoming, which is actually be right on top of this enemy fleet, pretty much. So we should get into a fleet engagement almost immediately. There they go. And now our fleets are engaged. And if we click on this, we can see the battle, the list of our ships. The little blue ring on the outside is their shields. The green ring is their hull. Same thing for the enemy. And we look at the relative fleet power. Ours is much more powerful. So we should win this. You see, yep, they're losing their ships. Alright. Oh, and they brought in some transport ships. They got caught. So we're decimating their armies. They managed to do an emergency retreat. This fleet has come over to try to assist. Again, not enough.
Situation log updated.
Alright. Alright, so once combat has been exited... Let me just reset this research. Army damage, let's go with that. We can fleet combat stats. So this let us know what the progress of that combat was. We lost 1 cruiser. We lost 12 corvettes. They lost 8 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 33 corvettes, 4 battleships, 26 transport ships. They destroyed 26 of their armies. You know, in space before they could even land. We destroyed basically this entire fleet and a mining station as well. So that actually was pretty good progress. So, that is kind of how you fight wars. Chase them down, trying to find out where their fleets are, engage them with your own fleets, siege planets, land your armies, occupy them. And what we're probably going to need to do is take my fleet here and say, we're going to fly down here. They got a bit of a ways to go, and see if we can't relieve that occupation of our planet. And if you can then amass enough war score, we can then make our demands. And as you can see, that they've actually created some counter demands. The various civilizations that we're fighting. So if you go to war and the other side says, well, you know what? If we're now fighting, we want stuff too. So if they win, they'll take all of this. Now, one thing we can also do is we can say we want to offer a white peace, which is basically to say, all right, it's all good, never mind, and end the war. But right now they won't accept. You can see the war score is -26. Relative Navy strength, we get a +10 from that. And the length of war is a -40. So the longer the war goes on, the more civilizations kind of want to end it. It's like, all right, this war's gone on too long. We've taken too many losses. It's time to try to negotiate this thing out. So, we can say, we're willing to, let that planet liberate, and we're willing to, take this stuff. And then we can say, okay, we can surrender that and get out of the war. So basically, it's a negotiated peace. We can't make war demands because we need to have +20 at least. Alright, so I think we're probably gone over most of that. And that's pretty much most of what you're going to do in the game. There's probably a few other things that might come up, especially when we get into like end game events and things like that, but I think that's kind of beyond the scope of this particular tutorial. This has been intended to kind of give you the basic concepts of getting the game started, getting into it, get playing, and what you're going to be needing to do to at least be able to manage your empire from here on. So I hope that this has been informative, and that you are probably now at a point where you can jump into a game and get going and enjoy this game, because I really enjoy it. I think it's becoming probably one of the better paradox strategy games out there. And I really like what they're doing with the DLCs and the changes they're making. And this game is going to grow and develop over time, and I'm certainly going to keep playing it, and so I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Now, we're probably going to do a couple more videos. I have a few other things to do that don't actually have to do with gameplay. We're going to be going over custom empire creation. We're going to be going over probably mods and things like that. So we'll be doing that in subsequent videos. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you next time.